Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Hey, if you wanted to ask me any questions about Knowledge for Men or any challenges you currently have and want me to help you break through, then check out my live weekly talks at kfmlive.com, where I share my biggest lessons learned about being the most powerful version of yourself and interact with the Knowledge for Men community live. To attend the next live event, go to kfmlive.com. Again, that's kfmlive.com. Hope to see you there and have a conversation with you. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Neil Strauss, the author of The Game, Penetrating the Secret Society of Pickup Artists, and recently, The Truth, an uncomfortable book about relationships, which is the long-awaited follow-up to The Game. Neil, happy to have you here on the show.
Cool. Thanks for having me on.
Neil, we're going to dive in. We start off every episode with some sort of saying, a quote that really embodies some of your latest work that you've done. So share with us what you got and what that means to you.
Cool, man. Yeah, I definitely don't have like a quote that embodies my work. Otherwise, I would just write quotes instead of the work, right? But I just hopped on Twitter as when you told me the format of the show, and I'm just going to go with the first quote that someone tweeted back at me, assuming that it's important or meaningful to them. Does that sound good?
Go for it. Go for it.
And it's from The Truth. So Sarah Jones wrote, the underlying cause, or tweeted back at me, I guess, the underlying cause of most unfulfilled lives is that we are simply too close to ourselves to see clearly enough to get out of our own way. So the underlying cause of most unfulfilled lives is that we are simply too close to ourselves to see clearly enough to get out of our own way.
And can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Yeah, no. I really think it's so tough. It's so easy for us to see what's wrong with everybody else and what's wrong with the world. Yet it's so hard to see what's we need, how we're showing up in the world, how we're self-sabotaging ourselves, how we're getting in our own way. And we might and then when someone tells us the exact thing we need to know,
we hate them.
We hate them. Yeah, we hate them. We dismiss them. We ignore it. We come up with a million reasons why they're wrong, and then we keep working on something else that's easy for us and isn't where the real growth opportunity lies.
Do you think that the problems that we see in other people are the same problems that we really have in ourselves, but we see them, we identify them in other people?
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. The problem, yeah, for sure. Definitely the things we criticize in other people are often the things that we do, for sure. There's a couple of different versions of this. There's like the Jungian idea of the shadow, which is when we see someone who instantly annoys us, we instantly don't like them, they instantly get on our nerves. It's usually we're seeing the part of ourselves that we don't like or the part of ourselves that we try to suppress. Secondly is the I forgot what was second. It'll come back to me. It was another good point, but I already forgot.
I'll bring it out. I'll get it out of you. So
okay. Why
did you write the book, The Truth? And what was the gap in time from you wrote The Game, widely successful, you brought a culture together, and it's an honor here to be talking to you. What was the gap in between? Why did you feel the need to write The Truth? And was that about a decade or so in between books?
Sure, yeah. And by the way, this wasn't what I was going to say before, but the way you can tell an addict that someone's an addict, like if you talk to them about their addiction and they get really upset about it.
Yeah.
Right. So somebody's like, if you talk to them about their drinking problem and they get really angry and break off the friendship, it's a good sign that they actually do have a drinking problem, right? Because otherwise it would be like saying, hey man, if you said that something was wrong with someone that really wasn't wrong with them, they'd kind of like give you a funny look and be like, what are you talking about? Not get really angry. So there's something that makes you angry when someone says it about you, then they've touched a button that exists.
It's funny that you say that. I'm promoting a book right now that I just wrote about porn, like helping guys get off porn.
Right.
And when I talk about this subject with men, some men are like, "Oh, thanks. Like this is good. You brought this to the table. I have a problem with this." Other men, it's like I'm taking something away that they've cherished for so long, and they hate me for writing it.
Yeah, exactly. And those are I think the challenge is, and those are the guys who probably most need to get off it or try the experiment of it. I find personally, if somebody says something and I have like a fear reaction like that, then I'll go do it. I'll say, you know what? If I can't conceive of my life without porn, then I'll do 30 days without porn and see what happens, or whatever it may be. Like I'm big on experimenting with your life in that way, removing something and seeing what shows up, and doing something that's scary and challenging and seeing what shows up.
Yeah. I think that's much of your career. I think that's what your career has been, right? That's what you've done.
Yeah.
So why'd you write The Truth? What was the motivation behind it? Why did you feel compelled to write this book?
Yep. And by the way, not to ask the third question, here's the other thing I was going to tell you before.
Okay.
Which is I have a system that can help people figure out how they get in their own way of listening to feedback. And what it is this. Simply, when we listen to feedback, we judge it for it's correct, it's incorrect, or I'm not sure. That's how we usually judge feedback. And so usually if it's correct, you internalize it. If it's not correct, you throw it out. If you're not sure, maybe you ask around, you think about it, you explore it a bit, and then you decide whether it's correct or incorrect. But there's a fourth type of feedback, which I think is the most powerful, which is if something incorrect or that you judge is incorrect keeps coming back to you, then you might want to switch it from the incorrect category to the maybe category and start exploring it. Okay. And that's where the big breakthrough is. So keep track of the advice and feedback you throw out. And if you keep throwing out the same piece of advice and feedback, chances are it's a blind spot of yours. And that's where the real big transformation can happen.
Just to go a little deeper into that, what would be an example that would be relevant for the audience?
Let's see. It could be a simple. For me, I can give a simple example, then a deep example. So a simple example would be maybe I'm I did a book with Jenna Jameson.
Yeah.
Speaking of porn, and I tried to get you some extra customers for your book by
getting people on porn. Yeah.
So there was one section of the book where she talked about her childhood that my editor said was too long, but we're like, oh, we love that section. Then a few other people said it was too long. We're like, oh, there's so much good stuff in there. And so 5 different people said it was too long, and her and I felt passionate about it, and we said no, we're keeping it in there. And now with 2020 hindsight, it was too long. It really was too long. And now when I do a book, if maybe 5 different people from different sources all say something is problematic, I'll err on the side that they're right.
And do you think there's a reason why you want to keep it there? Is that a problem? Is there something in there for you to learn and discover about yourself?
Yeah, the reason I want to keep it there goes back to the quote that Sarah Jones just posted on Twitter.
She's the star of this show here. She doesn't even know it.
Exactly. I don't even know who she is. Let's go check out her profile. She helps smart introverted men attract women naturally. There we go. She could be a good
someone on this show. Yeah,
a good podcast guest.
All right, multitasking.
So it goes back to a blind spot. Yeah, we're too close to it because we wrote the book she lived her own life. I've been living in her life for a year or what have you. Uh-huh. So we're so close to it that it feels important to us, but someone who reads the book cold loses interest at a certain point. So it's getting that outside perspective that's really, really that sometimes you're too close to yourself to see yourself. I'm too close to the book to see that this thing I'm really attached to really is hurting the book. And here's a deeper way that can happen is you're dating someone and she says, God, it looks like I have to walk on eggshells around you all the time. And you're thinking, what do you mean on eggshells? I'm an easygoing, cool person. What are you talking about, right? And then you kind of dismiss it and think she's oversensitive. Then you start dating someone else and they say, God, it's like I'm always walking on eggshells. Then maybe you got to look at your own control issues that you may not even be aware of that are showing up in the relationship.
Yeah. It's good that you brought it over to dating. Yeah, if women keep saying, or if it's women listening, for men, if it's saying the same thing, you're emotionally unavailable, you're too work-oriented, and you're like, no, I'm doing my own thing, but that can really be a sign that something deeper is really going on.
And yes, but it doesn't mean they're right. But it does mean there's something deeper going on. So I'll give you 2 examples of that, and then we'll answer the question you asked 15 minutes ago.
Okay. All right,
which is so one could be that you're right, that you're sort of emotionally disconnected and you're always working, but the other could be that you happen to date women with abandonment issues, and dad was never available,
And they
they
need
make you
more
into
time.
dad,
Yeah.
and no amount of you being there will ever be enough to fill that hole for them.
Yeah.
So the other deeper issue that to look at may not be that you're never available. It may be that you're dating a certain kind of person who has a voracious neediness for feeling wanted and accepted by you.
And then so it's also the guy who why is he attracting that same type of person who keeps saying that same type
Exactly.
of thing? What's going on there?
Yeah, there's something to explore either way. It doesn't mean they're right, but it means there's something there.
So now some guy's going to be like, well, I could see a guy bring it, like a girl says that to a guy and he's like, well, hold on. What happened in your childhood? And trying to like bring up, maybe it's your fault here.
Yeah. And guess what? It is, and it's also his fault too, because something happened in his childhood that he's.
So we're all imperfect. We're all imperfect with flaws, and we're all trying to make something happen with our past histories. And then that would say that our parents are also imperfect as well, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the truth is about. So to dive with that natural transition into that, yes, they are. We're all imperfect. We're all raised by imperfect people, and we're operating on programming. We're operating on programming that happened in our first years of life. We're operating on a certain software that was an operating system that was programmed in based on who we were raised by. And the question is, can you find the viruses in your programming and debug them so you can live like the best life possible?
Yeah. And is that what the book does, or does it bring awareness to that subject?
The book, to me, it begins that journey. I mean, some people have gotten transformations out of the book. Other people enjoy it as a fun story. Other people, it begins their own search and their own journey. But whatever it is cool. But to answer your question from before, yeah, it's a funny question that you asked about that it isn't like I write a book and then that's the only thing I ever have to say in my whole life and it's in the book. The book to me is a record of my experiences and thoughts up to the point at which I wrote it.
Right.
And then one hopes that you go through and you live life fully and you have more experiences and more lessons that you can then share. So basically, as I continue to grow, if I learn something that I feel is valuable enough to either both interesting enough to tell a story you don't want to put down, and B, valuable enough to give you some assistance in life that may not be available elsewhere. That's the criteria.
It's interesting too, because you wrote the book. This was late last year, I believe, in the fall, and so now we're here almost in March 2016. And by the time you're promoting the book, like you've probably grown so much that you're referencing something that was your previous work from years ago.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. I think that's true. But the other side of it is, I think when the book came out in October, it was so raw to me, the book, that I didn't know how to articulate it and talk about it. I feel like I'm talking about it better now.
Okay.
And explaining it better now than I did, because
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to explain it. I was so close to it.
Yeah. Someone's asking you questions. You're like kind of having a hard time answering. It's like, are you the author? Like, who wrote the book?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay.
Because it's taking, I think there's a process, especially when you write a book that really is, the book is your end goal, not the book isn't a vehicle to something else. The book is the statement. So if you put it in whatever it is, 300 pages or 350 pages, well, how do you explain it in, an hour-long podcast or in a 7-minute
news
CBS appearance?
I think I saw that. So what's with the book? Here's a short story, but a girl was here and she saw the book on the table, and I'm getting ready for this interview. It's Neil Strauss. She got excited, but at first she thought it was a Bible. She's like, "Oh, you reading more?" So it looks like a Bible. And what's the meaning behind that? It's got gold. It's a leather gold writing. It very much resembles a Bible. What is the significance of that?
Yeah, it's that my publisher, Judith Regan, who was my first publisher at HarperCollins, when I did the game, she had the brilliant idea to do it like a Black Bible, the game.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, hey, if the game's the Black Bible, the truth will be the opposite color Bible, and they're kind of bookends to life. One's when you're single and looking to connect, looking to kind of
it's like the
have
next
fun.
stage.
Yeah, and the next is and the truth is when you're really ready to connect and be intimate and have a super successful relationship and get to a happier place in life.
And so the book, the subtitle, an uncomfortable book about relationships, talking about uncomfortable topics like being faithful, monogamy, and these topics that we often believe that love is eternal or forever. I think that's kind of more mainstream. It's like if we get married, it's forever, right? But is that possible?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I think the truth originally was like an outgrowth of all these conversations I have every time a bunch of guys get together, whether it's singular relationships, which is monogamy natural? Like, does it make sense? Why do I have to be like faithful to one person for the rest of my life? If I like honestly, without cheating, sleep with someone else, does that gonna hurt? How does that affect our relationship? It doesn't make sense. Like, and also, we're in this time now where alternative lifestyles and relationships, polyamory, open relationships, swinging, group relationships, all these things are, living with partners where you're married but you live in different places, houses, and have that space. All these alternatives are now you can kind of design and build your own relationships. So I thought, well, what's the right way to live?
And so is this a healthier approach, or are these just alternatives you're suggesting to people if they're not feeling comfortable in their existing relationship?
What I can say is, like, for me in my journey, like, I experiment with all these different relationships. And the first premise is, if you're not healthy yourself, any relationship you have won't be healthy. So it doesn't matter what kind of relationship you try, they're all going to bomb.
What kind of healthy? Are you talking like internal self-esteem?
Healthy. Psychologically healthy. Yeah. You'll whatever your self-esteem level is, you'll attract partners at the same self-esteem level.
So is it safe to say that your level of self-esteem is your level of relationships with others? Like, if you have a high level of self-esteem, you can attract higher quality relationships.
Oh, for sure. Yep. Yeah, that's 100%.
If you have low self-esteem, you're going to attract low quality relation, or like, I guess maybe more.
Yeah, you'll attract people. You'll attract people who are at your level of emotional intelligence, and sometimes it may look different. Someone might be like, "Oh, that guy's so cocky, and she's so insecure. She's so controlling, and he's so spineless." But the truth is, they're just flip sides of the same coin. Obviously, the super arrogant person is just as insecure as the super externally insecure person.
So is the solution for one to achieve greater, more fulfilling relationships to focus then inward on oneself to grow as a man? Well, this is obviously a men's show, so to grow as a man, and as he focuses on himself and improves his life, then he'll start to begin to attract the type of relationships he truly desires.
Sure. Yep. That's one way to do it. Yeah, that is one way to do it. You can also do it within the relationship itself. You can just
go into that. Yeah.
You can just work on yourself within the relationship with no expectations of your partner to grow or change. And often you'll find that if you shift, the whole relationship shifts. And I think that's one of the big epiphanies I had along the way, which was that the success of your relationship has nothing to do with the other person. And as long as they're not being, say, physically or emotionally abusive, let's rule that out, that it's all about you and how you're relating to that person. Even the stories you're convinced that they're doing a certain way is you're in some way accepting it, enabling it, bringing it on, or perceiving it a certain way. It's amazing to me. If there's a theme of something we're talking about, it's really like going back to that quote at the beginning, which was the perfect quote, Sarah Jones.
She's crushing it.
But her name is, yes. It's funny, no one's gonna be able to Google her because she has the most common name in the world. Is that like self-awareness? Like, I think like self-awareness is so difficult to come by, but I know maybe in my relationship, I'll give you a quick example. Let's see, there was a documentary crew that came to my house to film something about monogamy and non-monogamy. And what my wife Ingrid was here, and I went to work out, and she texted me and she's like, "It's 10. The documentary crew, or it's 10:15. The documentary crew is here. They've been waiting for you. They've been waiting for 15 minutes. It's so rude." And in my head, I thought, like, who are to tell me it's rude? Like, it's my business. It's my life. I'm working out. I'm coming back in 15 minutes. It's fine. And so I just said, "Hey, like, I'm on my way home." And then she just responded back like, "So rude." And I really thought, like, fuck her, man. Like, I really thought, like, it's my life. Who's she to, like, why is she nagging at me? Like, I don't need like another mom to, nag at me and tell what I'm doing wrong. Like, just let me live my life and make my own mistakes, and who cares? And then I thought about it, and I thought, well, is it rude to have an entire documentary crew appointment to come to your house at 10 o'clock, then just go work out, and then come home, leave them waiting for 15 minutes, like the whole crew, when they've set this up to happen? But I thought, you know what? That is rude to be 15 minutes late when there's a whole film crew waiting to film you.
Right.
And so I'd like step back and I'm like, it is rude. Right. So I responded like, "You're right, it is rude." And then she responded back like, "Hey, sorry, I've had a rough day. There's this going on and that going on. I didn't mean to be like this." And we got to have a relationship by me being honest. So I had the choice at that point to make up a story and like turn her into my mom, right? Who was naggy and negative and always criticizing, or to look at the facts and say, okay, that's a valid point that she's making. And if it was a not valid point, I would have said it was a not valid point. But the truth is, it's true. So I could either go into this thing and then come home and like resent her, but I'm making it all up. It's just some story that I made up in my head versus the facts of it. Like you would want a real friend to tell you if you're doing something that's rude.
Was your view of your wife here, was that your gut reaction to kind of be defensive? Was that something from because you said mother, like nagging? So
that's my programming. That's my programming. Yeah, like everything I did growing up was like wrong, and I was always criticized for everything. So of course, we have these programs, right? And if somebody feeds like a certain input,
right,
your program will run. And think about it today as you go through life, like watch where you get heated. There's that saying, where there's reactivity, there's a wound.
Where there is reactivity, there is a wound. That's good. That brings up a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So watch where you get hot, and figure out, well, what is that input? And then what was the program it ran on? And then what's that output? And how does that output get in the way of your own life?
Wow. So how do our parents shape our views of love and relationships? It seems like this is the critical, like if we backtrack it, like so much of our views of what love is and relationships and our wounds are developed in childhood and teenage years, adolescence.
Right. And I would say like 50% of the people we're talking to probably still need to develop the awareness. I mean, I didn't have that awareness either. Like it's hard to really see it. Going back to that great Sarah Jones quote of mine, it's hard to see. It's hard to see your own childhood with any objectivity because you grew up in it. So you have nothing to really compare it to. You weren't inside somebody else's childhood. So it's hard to be objective about it. And things that seem normal, like I always talk to people who are like, oh, I had no trauma. I had a perfect childhood.
Right. Yeah.
And when we unpack it, like it's just as fucked up as anybody else's. There's no one whose childhood is not fucked up in some way. And especially the person who's thinking right now, well, mine wasn't. Yours is probably more fucked up than anybody else's. And one of our defense mechanisms is thinking that it was perfect.
So how would you, so if someone's like, well, no, my parents worked good jobs. My dad was a lawyer. My mom was an accountant. Like what would you find in his life? Like, what are some common things that you would dig into?
I love the things he did. Like the fact that his dad was a lawyer and his mom was an accountant has nothing to do with whether his childhood was healthy or not. That doesn't, if your dad, I mean, I know someone whose dad was a lawyer or her dad is a lawyer and her dad is always so busy that he's never available for her. So it's funny how you chose those.
Just showing that they were stable parents with jobs. Like when someone says, like, I had everything.
Means nothing.
Okay, good. So what are you looking?
No. In fact, the higher achiever you are, probably the more psychologically unstable you probably are.
So what are some things that you could find? Because I do see that where guys like, or it's not very common. I think most guys listening to this are trying to search for something and they're aware. But for some, they're not. Like they say, like I have no. Basically, I had a great childhood. Nothing's wrong. Like I'm just looking to improve a little bit here and there. Like how would you dig in and find something? Or what would be common, maybe? Because that's very broad. What I just asked.
I mean, we could dig into yours. I don't know. If it's, as an example, there's some things.
Just right off the bat, because I'm writing. I just told you I just put out a book about porn. It's called The Porn Pandemic, and it's been getting more heat than anything I've ever put out before.
Right.
And so I'm very I'll get feedback, and I'm like, what? Like, really, I get defensive right away. I've written other books on dating, on breakups, and I obviously blog a ton, and I do this podcast, interview guys like yourself, and I'm fine with the feedback, but for some reason with this subject, I find that I get defensive when a guy tells me I shouldn't be doing this. It's against religion, stuff like this, and just trying to help guys out.
So when someone tells you you shouldn't be doing this and against religion, what's your reaction?
It's like, don't you understand? I'm trying to help a guy. There are guys out there who need this, and this book may not be for you. This book isn't for every guy. It's for the guy who has a problem with this, and I created a solution because I previously had a problem with this.
Right, and the point being is like we can take anything and go whatever someone chooses to go with, we can go back to the same place. So if you get hot around A being like, don't you understand? It means that maybe you were misunderstood growing up. Maybe not.
Wow.
Is that true?
I don't know, but I just didn't think of it like that. So that brings up all kinds of.
Because if being understood is important, like to me, there are other people who, when someone would say like, "Oh, you're going against this and that," would be like, "Yes, I fucking hit a button.
Oh, you're
like
I know
rebellious. I'm doing something meaningful."
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's getting that kind of reaction, and I know what I did was right. So
I think validation too, validation of hard work and of the struggle.
right.
I think if it's not validated, I think there is something that's like, are you kidding me? Like I put my heart and soul into this.
Right. So and then to me, those always speak to like, okay, what were your unfulfilled childhood needs in terms of either being understood or getting validation?
Got it. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
No, I mean now I'm just thinking like all kinds of stuff here. Now this is turning into like a therapy session. This is great.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, we could go deeper, but I guess here's what I'll say. Here are the clues. So,
Okay.
where there's reactivity, there's a wound. So, where do you react? Where do you get hot? Then you can take that back. 2 is, when do you feel better than other people or less than other people? That's all, because again, all people are equal, right? We're all equal. We're all human beings.
Yeah.
And when do you feel like, oh God, everyone's such idiots and jackasses, and if I rule the world, it'd be better? Or B, when you walk into a room and you're like, oh God, I feel out of place. I feel uncomfortable. Everybody's smarter than me. Whenever one of those 2 things happen, too, it's you're off your balance, and that's a signpost leading back to the deeper wound.
Huh.
And so you can look. So one way to look for it is look where you're out of reality in your life. And then the second thing is, and again, it might sound like I'm making a big deal out of the childhood thing, but literally that's I'm speaking as someone who just had a child. You're born and your brain is there, but the architecture of your brain, all the neural connections are built in those first few years. Then they're pruned. Certain neural connections that you don't need are taken away. So, and there's never been a case. If somebody tells me about their relationship, someone tells me how they were raised, if they haven't done serious work on themselves, I can tell them exactly how their relationships are. And vice versa. If I know what your relationships are like, I can tell how you're raised. Even if it's not how you think you were raised, give me 10 or 15 minutes, and you'll see that it was probably the way you were raised. And why is this important?
Yeah. And
there's a great quote.
Yeah.
There's a great quote from the Jungian psychoanalyst James Hollis,
Okay.
who says, "What we do not know controls us." So, do you want to live an unconscious life, reacting, or do you want to actually be making choices in your life that lead to greater happiness and success and acceptance and all that?
So now that we know this and we're aware, like, oh, this thing in my past did happen, is it now about getting therapy? What are some steps to take to rebuild and grow from this?
Yeah, I think that, the awareness is not enough. There's that saying, awareness begins a change. I think I don't know who said it's a famous saying, but awareness begins a change and action makes it happen. But most frustrating thing is when you have the awareness and then you still keep doing it. It's one of the...
That might even be worse.
Yeah.
It's like, because that there's something there.
Right. But yeah, sure. There's a number of things you can do. And again, you can choose any model or way of doing it. But I'm really into super deep emotional therapeutic stuff that shifts stuff around. Because a lot of like our beliefs came in not intellectually, but they came in emotionally. They came in through early childhood. Maybe there's a parent who's not present in your life. Maybe there's a parent who's overly intrusive in your life. These things create your kind of wiring, and they come in emotionally. So there's a bunch of therapies that work on an emotional level where you have a shift that's so powerful that it can kind of change your life. But I think a mix, for me, here's what I found worked. I think the whole therapy model is broken in the country. It's just sucks. Paying somebody, whatever it is, $250 an hour every week for the rest of your life with no treatment plan and just to come in and talk about shit doesn't work.
Right. It only goes so far.
Right. And then if you want to use your insurance, then they'll take you to someone who'll just give you medication, which also like deals with the symptom, doesn't really deal with the underlying problem.
Right.
So what I find works are going to like these deep intensives where really you get some emotional shit. You might be crying on the floor. You get some emotional shit happen combined with some sort of group therapy for maintenance. It doesn't have to be with a therapist, but a group that gets together and can keep you on your course and see some real tools you can use in your life when you're slipping into your old pattern of behavior and to catch yourself. I find the mix of deep transformative intensive experiences with a group for maintenance with tools for self-maintenance is like the winning combination for like powerful transformation.
And is this forever, the maintenance?
Well, here's what I think it is. I think if you think the half-life of radiation, so if your problem is, say, low self-worth or it's a lack of confidence, every time you work on it, maybe you're cutting in half and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And my goal is to get to something where, what's the best way to put it? If it's like a seesaw where the weight on the healthier side is larger than the weight on the unhealthy side. So that, for example, let's talk about porn. So, for example, So I might have the desire to watch some porn, right? And if I'm compulsive and I haven't worked on myself enough, then I'm just going to say, fuck it. I'm going to go off and whatever, watch porn for like 4 hours and masturbate till I got sores on my dick or whatever happens. I don't know. I've never done it. So that's like the super unhealthy side, right?
Right.
Then the other side is, okay, I've worked on myself, but shit, I just saw a visual image that turned me on a billboard.
Social
and now I'm going to
media,
go home and masturbate for 10 minutes to this thing and get out of my system, right? But it's still compulsive. And then can you get to the side where you're like, okay, I got turned on or I want to watch the porn, but I'm going to make the choice not to do it. I still want to watch it, but I can make the choice now not to watch it. It's under control. So when you can eliminate something enough to not be compulsive about it, then I think you're at least on the right side of stuff.
When you have control over that challenge.
Right. When willpower is enough. Because we think willpower is enough, but we can't stick to diets. We can't stick to New Year's resolutions.
Right.
We can't stick to maybe the way we want to be in our relationship. We can't stick to so many goals. We get to the point when willpower can control a behavior, which is a tough point to get to.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say now we do the work, we take your recommendation here and go through some intensives and we do group therapy or some sort of group maintenance program. We find ourselves in a healthy place. Now we are starting to attract a healthy partner who is at the same level, who may have done something similar. Now, things are great always in the beginning. It's kind of like we're delusional in the first maybe year or so of a relationship. How can we keep the passion? How can we keep the romance from fading away over time?
Right. And you said the right word, delusional, because that's the relationship cycle. It goes from romantic projection where I'm delusional about who you are and about what this is all about, or I'm sort of projecting who I want you to be and all my hopes and expectations for this relationship. We're both doing that for each other. And that's why a lot of relationships at the 3-month or the 6-month or the 9-month mark, somewhere in that window, something starts to go wrong and off the rails, right? And there's certain people we know who probably have never been in a relationship longer than 9 months.
Yeah, they seem to be the 9-month kind of guy.
Right. And there's the saying, Joseph Campbell says, like, and then people say, oh, I found out this about you and now I'm disillusioned. And Joseph Campbell says, what's better than to be disillusioned, because now you're rid of your illusions and you're in reality. So there hits a point when we actually see the real person who is, as you said earlier, where everyone's imperfect, and they're imperfect. And they're not who you want them to be. And I love it. Like, people will tell me like, oh, I'm dating this person, but I'm just really intellectual and they're not interested in my interests. I'm thinking of breaking up. I'm like, breaking up with them. And I think, fuck, they're a different human being. Let them be a different human being than you. You can share your intellectual pursuits with someone else. They don't have to share every one of your intellectual pursuits or every one of your hobbies or support everything you do. One of the unhealthy things we have in relationships is expecting the other person to only think 100% positively of everything we do. So, and what that does is it's parentalizing them. So when you said, hey, so the next stage after kind of a romantic projection is the disillusionment and then the power struggle, where I try to get you to be like my fantasy and you try to get me to be like your fantasy. And we get in this power struggle, and some relationships stay that way for like 50 years, others end up in divorce. But then I think there's the sort of how do you keep the passion going is once you get in that power struggle, it's hard to still, there might be some like great makeup sex and things like that. But what we do is we parentalize the other person. There's like a quote in The Truth that says, when it's love at first sight, run in the other direction, because it means your wounds have met their childhood wounds. And there's a theory going back to this childhood stuff, but hey, it just happens to be true. And again, I would be resistant to this stuff if I hadn't gone through the journey of the truth. I was very resistant to believing it. So just to kind of put it out there, if I heard myself speaking, I would be skeptical about it. But often I find the things we resist are usually the things we need the most. So I just want to acknowledge that.
And that might be just in life too. Like, we probably resist diet. We probably resist working out. We resist not watching porn. Like, we resist a lot of things in life. So I think that applies everywhere. Yeah.
So, no, that's fine. So what we often do is are you in a relationship right now?
Dating.
So you're single and just dating different people. You're not in a relationship, right?
Correct.
Or you're dating. Okay, got it. So when you're in a relationship, do you ever complain that you feel like they don't understand you?
Yes.
Or they don't. Yeah. So, right. That's your thing. That's one of your things, right? So what it is, and again, just to not to hammer it too hard, but was there a parent who either didn't understand you or accept you or wanted you to be another way than you were growing up?
I mean, was there a parent? Maybe my mother to an extent.
In what way?
My dad was always accepting.
Your mom in what way?
I wasn't like academically. Most people in my family are academically very good and talented, and I was not.
So like your grades weren't good enough?
Yeah, my grades were not good. I was like a C student.
Right. And did you want your grades to be good?
Not really. I didn't care.
Yeah. So like you're kind of being forced to live up to a standard of something that really isn't true to kind of who you are.
Right. Yeah, I was reinforced all my life because everywhere I went, they're like, "Oh, you," because I was the youngest one. They expected so much, but it was just I never met what they thought I was gonna do.
Right. But you never you never
like teachers thought that I was gonna be the all-star student, but I never was because of my my brother and stuff.
Oh, got it. Yeah. So
because they thought high expectations of me, but I did not meet those.
And what was your passion? What were you really passionate about then?
Back then, being a rebel, skateboarding.
Right. And what did your mom think of skateboarding?
She just didn't understand it.
Yeah. See, look at your words, right?
Keep going.
Look at your words. Your words were she didn't understand it. Like it's such a theme, right? It's the exact word.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that fascinating?
It is.
Right. I mean, that was a word you chose about the other thing. There's definitely a one-to-one correspondence with this stuff. Right. So you were expected to be like, you weren't seen for who you were seen for who your brother was. And so you weren't sort of understood as your own separate, unique entity with your own unique passions and aptitudes and, skills and goals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The shadow.
Yeah. But so the point being is you'll get in a relationship. And again, I'm not saying this is a solid fact, but it's an overall thing. So someone will get in a relationship. The great thing is we build up our own story. Like you'll feel like not understood. If you might get confused acceptance with being understood. You'll feel like if they don't accept me, then they don't understand me. Because if they understood me, of course they'd accept me. Right. So you might get in a relationship and someone might be critical about something you do or not approve of something you're doing. And then you'll be like, oh God, they just don't understand me. And you'll build up a story and maybe make some distance between you and them. When in fact, they might understand, they might or may not understand perfectly. Who knows? But what we'll do is we'll often date somebody who literally will be like that parent and have expectations of us that maybe are not true to who we are, in your case, and set ourselves up for that. And then we think if we can make them understand us, unconsciously we think this, if we can make them understand us, then that'll heal that childhood wound. It's also how we first experienced love. So I know I'm getting super.
No. Good. Ahead. No, this is good. This is great. This is exactly where I would like to go. And you're bringing up a really good point.
So why does the passion go away? The passion goes away because we turn the person we're dating into mom or into dad, and you don't want to fuck mom or dad. You want to be understood by mom. You want to be accepted by mom, right? So if you're like questing for your unmet childhood needs from this other person, you're not going to want to fuck them.
Wow. I'm just like I'm like putting a girl and then going check. I'm putting a girl in front of my head right now going check. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
And that's why Sarah Jones is so smart with that quote.
She is, yeah. She's an all-star.
No, because it was a good one to choose, because if you can sort of be aware of this, if you can kind of get the awareness, then next time you're in that relationship, you can be like, oh, wait, I'm building up this whole story. And wait, what if I can just accept myself and understand myself and not need that from anyone else? I can be free to be in a relationship.
So self-love is going to come here as like a key pillar for relationships. Like if someone loves themselves at a very high level, they can experience healthier relationships.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think in the big overview, of course, self-love is definitely a key to healthy everything. But more specifically is if you can give yourself, if you can sort of, I got another question for you.
Okay.
How do you still talk? Is your mom still alive? Or
yeah, she's still alive.
Do you still have conversations with her about stuff? Does she understand like what you're doing now?
It took her like 2 years to finally accept what I do now, which is what I'm doing with you right now, podcasting, interviewing. Right. She wanted me to have a corporate job.
Right. But how great is this that you still get in that childhood relationship with, like, it took her 2 years to finally accept it. Like as an adult, that we still need them to somehow accept it. It's fascinating. So one of the things that we do is, if our parents are still alive, sometimes we're still in that relationship with them, still trying to be accepted and understood and not compared to our brother. So the one thing we can do is if we sort of, the first thing we have to do is divorce our parents.
Yeah, there's I think David Didas says, live as if your parents were dead.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. That's like an angry way of saying it. It
That's
sounds angry.
I mean, it goes deeper than that, but yeah, he like wants you to kill them or something spiritual.
Right. It's good.
Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to a therapist who would like have me imagine like again, like my mom was very controlling and she never let me like really controlling, never let me have even the keys to the house. So my entrances and exits to the house were controlled. And she was like, close your eyes and imagine like just hitting her with a baseball bat over her head and yelling, "Give me the fucking keys, you bitch!"
And is that healthy to actually do that for you? Like, did that provide some emotion that was in a cage that needed to come out?
Whatever it takes to separate,
Yeah.
I would say. Like, I think most people don't get to separate, like really become your own person, separate of your parents' expectations and what you need from them. And a lot of cultures and tribal cultures have rituals where maybe a child is kidnapped from their parents and taken out into the woods with the men and gone through this thing and comes back a man and no longer lives at home. But sure, I think anything that can help you really, really separate from those bonds. It doesn't mean don't talk to your parents or be friends with them and don't help them out when they're sick and all these things. What it means is don't be a child anymore. And also, by the way, some children had to take care of their parents emotionally growing up or financially, even as kids, especially emotionally. If parents are in a divorce,
yeah,
and you're there listening to your mom's problems about your dad. As an adult, you're still being a child when you're listening to your mom's problems about men or whatever her problems are. So it's having an emotional divorce with your parents.
Wow.
And then all those things you want from your parents, learning to give them to yourself, because you really will find, like, I think there's some key thing is you can figure out what your unmet childhood needs were. And it's not hard, and start being that good parent to yourself.
I'm coming off from this again with self-love, and I think it is very hard for us to sometimes love ourselves when we aren't where we want to be in our lives. I know external things should not be the factor here, but I think many men do feel like they're not making the income they want, they're not having the dating life they want, and it makes it difficult for them to love themselves. But first, I feel that should come internally, not externally.
Yeah. And I think love is a big word. Like, love is a general word. And again, I totally agree. But I'm thinking in terms of implementing it. First of all, a lot of us don't know what love is or looks like. Some of us don't know what love is or looks like because maybe we didn't grow up with it, or we grew up with something that was called love but wasn't really. Okay. And so it's hard. But I agree. I mean, I think self-love is key. But if we can really drill down and think, well, what were the parts of love we didn't get? Is acceptance part of love? Yes. Is understanding part of love? Yes. Other people could be safety. It could be time, nurturing, whatever those things are. We can kind of drill down and get even more specific so we know exactly how to give them to ourselves. And then we know that's a moment when I need to accept myself.
Yeah. Yeah. This has been really powerful. Like, I'm learning so much just from this episode here. So this is great, along with my listeners as well, just kind of leading the way here, being a voice for my listeners. I just have a few last questions here. If we could dive into a part of the show I call the knowledge round. If you're tired of living the mundane day-to-day and just the daily grind and want to experience more joy and fulfillment in your life, then check out my live weekly talks and open Q&A with the community where I share my biggest insights on becoming the most powerful version of yourself to rise above mediocrity and create the life you desire. Register for the next upcoming event at kfmlive.com. Again, that's kfmlive.com. And hurry up before all the spots are taken. Hope to see you there. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime. All right. So my first question here is, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling lost or unsure of their purpose?
Great. I would say, then you're fucking living. We have this idea, like, a friend of mine has this, we were having a discussion and he said, there is uncertainty in knowing. So my thought is, if you're lost and uncertain of your purpose, then that means you're kind of in reality. My thought is just do shit you enjoy. We have this idea that we can intellectually figure out what our purpose or our passion is. And sure, there are ways to do it. Like, a lot of people say, hey, and I think it's true, what did you enjoy doing when you were like 10 or 11 or 12? That wasn't something that school or your parents made you do. That's often the thing that you love. But what I would really say now is, great. Like, just do shit, find the shit you enjoy and do more of it. And if there's nothing you enjoy, then it's not about doing, it's about your way of being.
Wow. So it's not about like, it's actually a benefit. It's not a detriment that you haven't found this thing. It's more of an opportunity to explore.
Yeah, uncertainty is great. I'm thinking of writing a book, like just a little book called The Power of Low Self-Esteem. That's all about like, if you
That's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, that's all about like what a great motivation it is to not know and be uncertain. Maybe pity the person who's really certain. Trump is very certain. So pity the person with total 100% certainty.
Yeah, you should do like the power of childhood wounds.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of,
everyone's like, what?
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. So, so embrace that part. I think it's the angst about it that is more harmful than actually the not knowing or the uncertainty. And again, I often find too that it's not. People think it's something you should be doing, like, oh, it needs to be writing books or making movies or being a professional chef or being
like it's a title.
They think it's like a job or a career. Like that's not what a passion is. It's not that. Like, for me, maybe it's not writing, even though I love writing. I'm really passionate about it. For me, it's storytelling, I think.
Yeah. And
whatever form that may take, it may be just telling a story. It may be film. It may be, there's so many different ways storytelling could show up. If you eat the Fat Duck at this amazing restaurant in the UK, that the meal is a story and they lay it out like a story. So it's often not a thing you do, but it's something that ties together the stuff you love. And it doesn't have to make money. And yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I think that just alleviates so much pressure that we feel as men trying to find this thing that is, supposed to be, it's like this holy grail that once we find it, we're going to be successful. And I think it makes us feel at ease and more at peace with this idea of finding your purpose. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's an artificial construct, and also your purpose can change over time. And your meaning, what's meaningful and passionate about you, can also change at a time. And then again, there's some people who have a dissatisfaction that's almost a self-sabotaging thing, that they'll get to a certain point in everything they do and then say, oh, it's not for me, and then keep switching it. So they'll always be lost in searching. So another thing I think is that I've never said this before, but I'm thinking about it now, is maybe instead of looking for your passion, look for like, what is my way of being that opens up the most in my life? If I bring, by way of being, I mean like just who are you? Are you a happy person? Are you a confident person? Are you excited, passionate, honest, integrity? What are those words? And if you bring that to everything you do, my guess is it'll be impossible not to be in line with your passion.
This is great. Thank you for that. And what was holding you back from becoming the man you are now today, Neil?
It's funny. I'm always looking for what's holding me back for the man I can become tomorrow. So to answer that question, let's see, what's holding me back right now from being the man I can become tomorrow? Boundaries. Good boundaries. I think right now I just had a new baby.
Okay, congratulations.
And which is awesome, and married, and I think the marriage is 2 years old. The baby's 1 year old, and I think now it's trying to figure out finding the right boundaries and balance. Like and especially all the stuff we know about childhood wounds, being like the best parent I can be is so important to me. To not
bring that over, to spill the beans over.
Right, to not pass on the fucked upness.
Yeah.
So I think it's finding the right boundaries and balance right now is probably like important, because it really does shift your priorities. Like that power of low self-esteem, or is it more important to raise a child with self-esteem, or to hole up and write a book about it? It's more important to raise that child. So I'm trying to find the right boundaries and balance right now, and even relearn the relationship now with the baby there. So maybe that's it.
Yeah. Thank you I appreciate the vulnerability there. And what would you say are 2 or even 3 of your most influential books, and why, that you've read?
Well, I'm a big believer in fiction. I think that we learn through metaphor, and most of what I read is fiction.
Interesting.
So let's see. I'm on a big jag right now. I have this, I just put a blog post up that literally I'm trying to clear my, like the 60 or 70 books of fiction I haven't read that are on my shelf, that I'm going to read them all this year, and I'm writing little descriptions of them up on my blog. But let's see. Ulysses by James Joyce, and is like, it's the book I read. I'm like, I didn't know you could do this with language. I read it in 12th grade for like a class in 12th grade with some super teacher. And literally I'm like, whoa, man, I didn't know we could do this with writing and language. And it just blew open my mind. So I reread it like with my entire like mailing list every few years. And literally we'll read it together and get on the phone and discuss it, because you need a guide through it. So you should do it if you haven't read it. And everyone listening, you guys should do it when we do it again.
Yeah. Is there a reason why you do fiction over nonfiction?
Yeah.
What is that reason?
Yeah. So nonfiction, I find, is usually like there's an agenda there. Someone has a point of view they're trying to argue for. These are the 10 things you need to, like, whatever, have a better life. And fiction, I find, like, explores reality and all its nuances. Fiction to me, like, it sinks, like, in literature, I mean, not just like a spy novel. Like literature,
right.
literature like attacks the problem of existence and shows it from every angle. I just read finally Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. It's a great book about, someone's search for enlightenment, or Siddhartha's search for enlightenment, and it's great. And it has all these dialogues, and I find that it attacks. And also I find that the brain doesn't learn through a bulleted list. Like, you could, at the end of this podcast, right? I don't know if you do it, but some people say, here are the 5 points, and here's the 3 book recommendations, but you could read that and get nothing from it. You have to listen to the discussion.
Yeah. That's I have a library of nonfiction behind me. Like, if you could see what I look like, there's a library of nonfiction books behind me.
That's funny. Let's see. And I love Ask the Dust by John Fante. It's a great book about a struggling writer who just is, like, sucked up into his own ego and just is horrible with women. And I just love it. This book, Ask the Dust by John Fante. It's one of my, James Joyce's Ulysses. And, Celine, Journey into the Night. It's just a great book about it's dark, and a great book about the futility of war and everything else. And I just read another book as part of this year of fiction, The Dwarf by, I can't pronounce his last name, but Per Lagerkvist, Lagerkvist. He's a Nobel Prize winner and wrote this book called The Dwarf, which again is also really a book about the dark side of human nature and everything else. I just love fiction because it's also stylistic. Like, their writing is beautiful or poetic. I love the style of it. I'm just a big believer in fiction. Yeah, even though I only write nonfiction. However.
Yeah. Okay, maybe there's something going on there that we should explore.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. You know what? Maybe that's what's holding me back. Maybe I'm too scared to take that leap from my life to fiction. Maybe I'll do that now.
Oh man. All right. So what was 25-year-old Neil doing? What was he doing in his life at this time?
25-year-old Neil was writing for the New York Times.
Okay, New York, so he's in New York. Okay.
Yeah, no, I got started early. I was you can tell I had a really fucked up childhood by the amount of ambition I had, I guess. Though again, like, it's funny, when the job opened at the New York Times, and my self-esteem was so low that someone said, you should apply for this. And I said, no, I suck. There's no way they'll ever hire me. So I didn't even apply. And believe it or not, like, the Times called me and said, hey, we have this job. Do you want to, like, write some stories and try out for our music critic job? So I was a music critic and journalist at the New York Times, and my low self-esteem got me there.
So, so 25-year-old Neil, if you could see him, he's in New York, probably after work, walking through one of the main streets there. And if you could have 60 seconds with 25-year-old Neil, what would you tell him to do? And what would you tell him not to do?
I'd probably get advice from him. But for real, I would, like...
No one's ever said that. I've done 250 interviews. Okay.
Yeah, because here's the thing, like, you gotta, first of all, you have to learn from your experience. The words aren't going to tell you anything, but I feel like he was just really engaged in what he was doing and passionate about passionate, and I would love to just know what was in his head then, so I can keep some of that with me now.
Okay, cool. Just letting that sink in. I really like that.
Yeah,
I really like that. We in general sort of lose some of that drive, you're saying, or some of that gusto, some of that
naivete, right? Some of that naivete and that innocence, and it was a point where where we have that anything's possible. I'm doing this, and it feels really, really important. And there's sort of like sometimes the more we know, the more we can start to get in our own way. Yeah. And also assuming there's a right way to do things. Because there is no right way, but assuming there's a right way makes you start to watch your step. When you watch your step, maybe the great accident doesn't happen.
Yeah, maybe you don't even take the step. Wow, I like that. This is that was a new take. Yeah, like I said, this is like episode 250 or something, and everyone has something they want to say, but you would ask your younger self. I really like that and admire that. Just even if you have to summarize some of your main points here, just wrapping up, what would you say is your philosophy on life and success?
I'll quote John Cage, the avant-garde, the composer. He said, my credo is be open to whatever comes next. So that's my philosophy, and to not get stuck in. There's a saying that what got you here won't get you there. So that's it. Is to really have it. Maybe this goes back to talking to little 25-year-old Neil. Is to have a really open mind and and attack and live in each moment as if the moment before it didn't happen, so you can really experience it.
Yeah. I like that. Great. That's going to conclude the knowledge round there, Neil. Fantastic episode. Cool. What's exciting you now in 2016? Obviously promoting the book here, The Truth, an Uncomfortable Book About Relationships. You can easily, guys, find it on Amazon. Just Google, it pops right up. But Amazon, it's the first thing that shows up when you type in The Truth. I'm looking at it right now. But other than this book here, what else is exciting you?
Cool. What's exciting me in 2016 is doing escape rooms.
What? What's escape rooms?
Dude, if I can change your life, forget about all the childhood crap we've been talking about. Listen to me. You got to do an escape room. They're the greatest things. And again, half the audience knows what I'm talking about, a half dozen, which is they're based on, like, if you ever played those room escape video games where, like, an iPad and you got to, like, find little hidden things and clues to get out of rooms.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I get started in Hungary. They started making real rooms. And I just did one last night with my wife and some friends. And it was really cool. We go into a room, they put on actual virtual reality headsets, and a story begins. And we're in a science lab, and we're trying to find an antidote to a virus that's destroying the world. You have 1 hour, and maybe you're locked in a room, or you have a puzzle to solve, and you have to solve as a team all these puzzles, find all these hidden clues and hidden keys and things to solve the puzzle or escape the room. It's like a live video game, and it's great for teamwork, for problem solving ability, and it's just a lot of fun.
Wow. So where, all right, so I'll just Google escape rooms, but there's virtual reality escape rooms.
Or don't worry about virtual reality. This one just happened to have that as a gimmick. They don't have that. But
okay.
Yeah, just search escape room or room escape, and literally any city with a population over 100, 200,000 has one now.
All right. Neil, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been a very powerful episode. You've shared invaluable wisdom here with my audience. So I just want to honor your time and thank you for being vulnerable and even giving me some coaching therapy on the show here.
Awesome. No, it was a lot of fun. And let me know how you like your first escape room.
All right. We'll stay in touch. Take care, Neil.
All right. Good talking. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement, and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes, because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.